So I am welcoming you to this professional development session today, where we are going to talk about energizing our online discussions. And we're going to, we are still getting ourselves accustomed, getting me accustomed to using WebEx as our tool for setting up these sessions. So I want to show you just a couple of things about that. WebEx is the tool that Canvas uses, that we're using within Canvas for your trainings, for your classroom meetings, for your anytime you need to connect with your students. And we have access to 3 different levels of it. The My WebEx is when you want to set up a one-on-one meeting with a student. The meeting center is set up for small groups. The training center is when you are going to do a synchronous whole class session. And then the event center is designed for large groups. And that's what we're using for this. So within the WebEx Event Center, which is where we are, there are several different levels of participation in there. The moderator and our host is who is going to be communicating with you via the chat. And this person is your personal concierge for this training session. And our moderator for today is Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Hello. And so anytime you have a question, you can put it into the chat and Daniel will respond with you. The presenters are those who can speak freely, who can also share the screen, which is what I will be doing today. And then participants can chat with others, but if you want to speak, just raise your hand and they will, Daniel will unmute you in order to speak. And at one point, I'm going to be asking several points, we'll be asking everyone to do that. So that's the cast of characters in this event. So what we're going to be talking about today is thinking about how to make our discussion boards in our online classes a little bit more effective, add some enthusiasm and excitement into it, and which of course leads to student engagement. We're going to take a look at some of your discussion board prompts, and because this is what we do in here, we're going to take a look at the pedagogical foundation for how we use discussion boards. And as with anything that we do with the pedagogy, we're going to take a look at the art and science of how to really make those effective discussion boards, and then talk about some strategies that we can use to update those discussions. So this is an overview of where we're going, and no, you do not need to have to read through that whole diagram, but this is how I process information, by setting it up in a visual display like that. But I'm going to break it into pieces and share those pieces with you throughout this session. And so the first one is, who are we traveling with? And so this is where I would like for you to introduce yourself to. They will unmute your mics and just let us know your name, your institution, and your department. And if your computer doesn't have a mic, then I'll invite you to put it in the chat room so that Daniel can share that with us. So let's see who we have with us today.
She says she's from Tallahassee Community College.
Okay, and that's Maria?
Yes.
Okay, welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining us today.
And Rusty teaches astronomy.
Wonderful. Oh, that's exciting. This has been an eventful year for astronomy, right, Rusty?
Jan McNeil, she's from Tallahassee, CC, Workforce Development.
All right, workforce development. At also Tallahassee Community College, Jen?
Yes, that's community college.
Okay, all right. That's great. Thank you.
Karen Washington, as well as from Tallahassee Community College.
All right, excellent. So we have quite a nice group from Tallahassee Community College. That's great. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, and I see Ash and Tracy both have hands up. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tracy.
I'm Tracy Hill at Florida Atlantic University, former curriculum and instruction master's student.
All right. And Ash?
Hi, my name is Ash Kinney. I'm an assistant professor of English at FAU.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Anyone else? Does that get everyone? Did we miss anyone? I don't want to miss anyone. I want to make sure we get everybody in. And yes, I see Nicole and does not have a microphone, I don't believe. So Nicole is an instructional designer here at the Center for eLearning and joining us today. So we have a nice group in here. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to the Padlet. I hope you've had a chance to at least respond to the first question, and that is to put in a discussion prompt that you either have used or that you might be using. And then if something that you have used, reflect about it, think about it, or think, or does it need something? So I am going to move us into the browser. All right. And I have my questions up here. So you can post your comments in there, but we can also have a conversation about the measure posting. Anybody want to jump in and share a comment about a discussion board prompt that you have used? Okay, so I see an answer. And I'm going to invite you, I did not say initially, but invite you under the title to put your name. All right, so while we're waiting for responses to appear on the Padlet, how about just jumping in and saying something? I know we've got a nice group from Tallahassee, and if you're not using the mics, you can also post something in the chat.
So Rusty says, for this topic, we will be dating things on planet Earth using the method of radiometric dating. What you will do is research an actual single study that has been conducted using the method of radiometric dating. Topics can include dating meteorites. Please choose only one meteorite. Dating a certain geologic event in Earth's past, like a particular asteroid impact, a single volcanic eruption, or looking at a dinosaur fossil to tell us about how and when it was lived.
Wow, that's quite a discussion board. Rusty, what level is this course?
Second year.
Okay, all right, jump right in there. All right, that sounds fascinating. It sounds fascinating. And Nicole has one where she has posted on the Padlet, where posted an image or a description of when you participated in a campus event, and that's when she's looking at things for a seminar course, and it's essentially an introduction into campus life, right? Yeah, that's kind of what I figured it out. Okay, and so Ash has the relationship between representation and power. Want to clarify for everyone a little bit, Ash?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the WebEx
So are we,
software
Ash,
as well.
so are we.
Yeah, so the course that I'm currently putting together for through this online training is called Ethnic Images in Film. And so the first kind of introductory week, students will be reading work by Stuart Hall, who was a kind of influential Black British media studies and cultural studies scholar. And so they will have just read a piece by him called Representation and the Media, in which he talks about this relationship between who has the power to represent themselves in kind of late 20th century media, and how issues of race, gender, class, sexuality affect one's ability to represent oneself versus being represented by somebody else. So that would be kind of the question that they would be working through.
Yeah, excellent question. Excellent question. Anybody else want to jump in? So I'm okay, and so Tracy would like to just share something rather than post it on the Padlet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Discussion board topic. How equipped are you as an instructor to handle students with issues of disability?
Putting us right there on the front line, right? Absolutely, absolutely. And I can give a quick answer to that. Not as equipped as I thought I should have been. Okay, so what I'm going to do is invite you to continue to post responses to the other questions, and we will come back to this in just a few minutes while we go ahead and talk a little bit more about some of the other aspects of discussion boards. And there's my questions on there. How did it go, and does it need some pizzazz? And based on what we heard, I'm not sure that I think Rusty's is pretty well set, and it sounds like Ash was too. So let's go on. There is research that indicates that a well-facilitated, well-designed online discussion board is more engaging and more produces better results than the face-to-face class. And that's something that those who are new to online teaching, that's one of the big questions they have in their mind. And we can, this was one of the research things that I found, but we can also provide a great deal of anecdotal comments to that based on the faculty that we have come through this particular center and the way that they respond to the to discussion boards. So it's while it's most of us don't think initially that it can be as effective, but we've had some that not only was as effective but more so. We had one faculty member who realized that she also needed to make sure that the students had access to some of the services available on campus for counseling. So yes, it can be much more as engaging as face-to-face, and in many cases more so. So we're going to talk a little bit about the art and science of effective discussions. And art and science are natural partners within the pedagogical perspective. They give us the opportunity to investigate our discussion board tool, to be able to get your students engaged and really develop that strong sense of community in them. So let's talk for a little bit. Let's take a look at the science, the pedagogical aspects of the science and of discussion boards. And this is where we, as instructors, we want to the intent. What is our intent for this discussion board? It might be that it's an area that we want them to develop some more intense comprehension of the content, where we connect their prior knowledge to what is being presented. It might also be, the intent would be an opportunity for them to critique some of the content and some of the information that they're developing as they go along, because that truly is one of the ways of getting to know, getting very familiar and comfortable with the content, is if you can take a look at what's being said and critique it. From a constructivist perspective, the discussion board can be a way for our students to construct their knowledge and to build on what they have, that whole idea of scaffolding and taking students from what they know into the next level with support and providing for them. And again, with that interactive discussion part. And a way for them to share their own knowledge, because you may have may do, say, a jigsaw type of an activity where you have different groups researching different aspects of a particular concept and then coming back into the discussion board to share that information. So from a science perspective, the pedagogical perspective of the science of developing the discussion board in order to accomplish what you need accomplished with your students. So let's take a look at the art of online discussions. From this perspective, we, as with a face-to-face discussion, we want to reach out to, we want to touch all of the students that are in this conversation. Within the classroom, within a face-to-face classroom, we make eye contact, or we nod, or we throw out a couple of comments. And it's the same way within an online discussion. You may do just a thank you, what a thoughtful comment type of response, or ask them a question based on what their responses were. But it is important to reach out and acknowledge what they have done. It's also important for us to have a solid understanding of what our students need. And the way they respond in the discussion board gives you a perspective on how to figure out what they need. If they are ones who respond often and a lot, but maybe not say anything that's in much depth, then you would want to give them some suggestions for really going a little bit deeper in their thinking. And it's also very clear within their discussion post to see when they're confused or when they have misunderstood some concept. So it gives us the opportunity of being aware of our student needs. Yeah, Rusty, and I see it come up, but I don't see the whole comment. So Rusty's comment on that.
It says, give student the latitude to research and express their newfound knowledge. Then I always ask a follow-up questions to all initial postings. This is aside from the questions that students ask students.
Yeah, and then that way they know that you are taking an active part in the discussion and yet letting it be their discussion, because that's one of the comments that I have on this one is lead or be led in there. And clearly, if it's a student discussion board, you want to let them take the initiative. Yeah, they got to know I'm participating as the instructor. Absolutely, that there's more than just a computer on the other end of that course, right? Yeah, that's the opportunity to let them know that you're there and to give them some guidance, give them a little bit of direction. And that's what the other one I have on there too, is possibilities and alternatives. Postings do not come in one size fits all. And we can take a risk of hindering their creativity if we just award credit for posts that have a certain amount of words or a certain amount of content. We certainly don't want to make sure that yes, I agree with you is not an acceptable one, but don't try to judge by the length of the conversations. As in a face-to-face classroom, you're always going to have some that would like to dominate. And so make sure that you acknowledge the merit and those things that you can add to the discussion. So that's a little bit about the art and science of it. So let's go back to the Padlet. And if you have not posted in the Padlet, we'll just have a conversation about it. Let me take us back there. And if we don't have a lot of postings, then we can just have a chat. All right, so the items that we include in our introduction, and this was an interesting thought that is something that came up as I was reading into this, that typically our introductions are why you're taking this class, tell us a little bit about what your interests are, and that sort of thing. And the author of one of the articles that I read indicated that, and this was in an exercise science and health course, that he had the students go to the refrigerator or cabinet and find something and share with them what the serving size for that particular item was. And that proved to be an eye-opener for some of the students. So think of, you might want to add something that's a little bit different to add some pizzazz, add some excitement into the introduction, something besides, and I'm taking this class because it's required for my course, but I think it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I've seen that a few times. So anything else, any other ideas for something unusual that you could add to your introduction discussion board? Ash, I have a feeling you have some pretty interesting things that you could bring forth, and Rusty, I'll bet you do too. Okay, Ash, we're unmuting you so that you can share.
Hi, yeah, I was just typing on the Padlet.
That's okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that the answer around taking this class because it's required is one that we probably all get all the time.
Absolutely.
I always try to push students a little bit past that one to ask them to reflect on how there could have been any number of classes that would have fulfilled that particular requirement. So why did you take this one of, say, the 5 that might have done it? But another more fun response or question that I usually ask is, again, since I teach media and literature, cultural studies, who is your favorite artist? And you can define artist in any way that they want to, whether that be a visual artist, a musical artist, a writer, anyone, and to come up with a reason of why that person speaks to them in a particular way.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. And actually that could, I mean, yours is media, but that could apply in almost any of our courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Anybody else have something a little bit unusual to add for an introduction piece?
Says he rarely gets the response about required course.
Good.
Usually get the response of interest in the universe.
Absolutely. And I love the perspective of putting it as the universe rather than, what's up there in the sky. That's a great perspective on it. Clearly, I didn't take the first year in your course though, so. So one of the challenges then for you is to think about some different things that you can put into your introductory post. One that we use, and Ash has seen it. Yeah, I know. I thank you. One that we have used in our workshop is something about yourself that other people might not know, or something unique, or something unusual that you have done, just to get them thinking. Another one that I've heard different people say is, what do you see when you look out your window? So there's a lot of approaches to make it a little bit more interesting and exciting for them. So my third question is, how many discussion board posts are the right number for a course. And of course, there is no right number answer, but what feels like a good number for them. And I know Nicole answered that one, 10 posts per course, and that's for a full semester, or once a week or every other week. How do we feel on that? And then there's Ash says 1 or 2 a week. Rusty, 2 discussion questions per week.
Karen says at least 3 per semester.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Well, it's a question that we all wrestle with, that we deal with. And it's something to think about is, Karen, is that for a full semester? Okay, and I'm going to assume that that's probably a
Express 7-week course.
Okay, so 3 in one of the 7-week courses. And so that ties in with one of the things that Nicole said, every other week. Just be careful about the every week or a couple of 1 or 2 per week, about the first of all, what you have them post, you also have to read and look at, but also be careful about the idea of the perception of it becoming busy work for them. So you want them to know that it's a substantial piece of the course. And if you were doing face-to-face, you would have some form of discussion pretty much every week, and yet it might not be as extensive in some weeks as others. And so do we have any questions or concerns about discussion boards? All of them that you've mentioned seem to be pretty substantial, and seem to be things that will indeed generate a lot of interesting interactive discussion. Any questions about them or concerns about discussion boards?
Hi. Yeah, I guess my question is, and I posted this on our e-certification training workshop as well. Given that my classes are generally rely on discussion as kind of the main event of the class. And I've used discussion boards in my face-to-face classes before, but usually as a kind of precursor to the actual discussion that happens in person. So what kinds of strategies do people use to make or what kind of practical strategies do people have to make the discussion boards kind of as close to or as robust as those in-person discussions? Or are there other technologies that people use to try to recreate that kind of experience of in the face-to-face discussion that happens in the classroom in the moment?
Well, a lot of it, and I will also leave that open for those who are online to either write responses in the chat or raise your hand and speak up. I'm fine with that. A lot of, clearly the robustness of the discussion board is going to be based on how you set it up and how you organize it, and the importance that you put on it. Your persona comes across to your students, and if it is something that is an important piece of it to you, they will understand that as well.
I see.
For a possible alternative, and so Nicole has.
Yeah, Jan has one. She said one concern is students waiting until the last minute to post, even though deadlines are much earlier.
Yeah.
This does not give others in the class sufficient time to respond.
Yeah, that whole deadline and response thing definitely is a key one. And I don't know what LMS are you using in Tallahassee? Canvas. Okay, and that's what we have in here as well. And so then the question becomes how you set the due date for the discussion board. and trying to set it so that the students are aware. I usually put it in the instructions, the date for the original post and then the date for the responses, but some way of making sure they are aware of the fact that you've got two different dates in there, that you have to have your post in order to get student responses.
Nicole also added, she said, sometimes we have to post videos, blogs/vlogs to get some personalized interaction and responses via blog. Keep in mind this requires technology on part of the student.
It does indeed. And so along those same lines, I'm going to share something else that we have. Rusty says initial post on day 2 and response post on day 4. And when you set the semester up that way so that the students know consistently in there. One of the tools that we have discovered that we've shared, and Ash has seen this and actually has used it because we have it in the workshop that we are conducting at the moment. But there's a tool called Flipgrid, which is a place for students to record a video response. And you can set up the question or the post, put the prompt in there, and then the students, it's a very, very easy access. And I don't have that listed in my resources, but I will send that link out and the information out to those of you in Tallahassee and everyone that's online. I will send that to you. But with Flipgrid, all you do is set up, as the instructor, set up the post and then give the students the link. And when they click on that link, they are able to go into it. They see your post and they have just one, I think it's a green button. Yeah, a green button to click to start recording their post. And you can set it up for anywhere from 15 seconds up to 5 minutes to post on there. And I've had pretty good results with that. In the class that I'm doing right now, I teach an Introduction to the Teaching Profession class. And so I had them review some links on a particular website having to do with Common Core, and for them to pick one that they felt drawn to and create a short commercial for that particular site, and then go into Flipgrid and record their commercial, and then had the others go back in and respond to their commercial. And that turned out pretty good. I also started that out with that. This was not the first time we had used it. I had them use it for their introduction in the class as well. And the advantages there are the fact that you can see the other students, you can talk to them, or you can respond to them, but you can hear them talking and see their actions and mannerisms as they're responding. And then can go back in and respond to what they posted. And it seems to me like a very, very effective tool so far. It's a very interesting item to use, and seems very effective. So that's one piece of a way of putting some of the personal touches into it. So excellent. Let me go back in and see what we have here. Yeah, we are doing fine. So any concerns about the discussions? Can your introduction be energized? And we came up with some great ideas for that. And so this was the things that we just talked about, adding pizzazz into your discussion boards by making some changes in your introduction, rethinking the prompts that you use and how you ask your questions, and then also how many discussion boards are you suggesting for the semester. So all of those are ways of adding, changing it up a little bit. So again, I'm taking you back to the opening that I did, and I think we've pretty much looked at all of these. What is a takeaway? What is something that maybe resonated with you, or something that you would like to think more about as far as the your discussion boards? And again, if you can, we can unmute you, or you can put your comments in the chat room. Any takeaways? Anything that you'd like to add to the discussion on discussion boards?
Jan says Flipgrid question ideas.
Is that that's the takeaway, the Flipgrid? Yeah, it's a pretty fun tool to use. Very easy to use, and I'll send that information out when you when you get the note about the attending this session. That I will include that in there.
Karen also says the quantity of discussion boards.
Yeah, that's something to think about. And again, typically new people to online courses tend to think they have to do one every week. And in many cases, it depends, depending of course on the content, but you just don't want it to get to where it's like mundane for them. It's just one more thing. It's busy work. Definitely not busy work, especially based on the content that you all have shared. But you don't want them to wind up not putting, if there's fewer discussion boards, they're more likely to put a better effort into it.
Nicole says it's important to set the expectations of the post and response to due dates at the beginning of the course.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely, and to let them know that the importance of it, particularly where you're in online course, the importance of it is that's really is where a lot of the content comes through.
And finally, Rusty says that students typically enjoy talking about themselves and nosy about learning of others' particulars. So you usually get good responses on introductions.
Mm-hmm.
He requires a set number of response posts to other students' initial posts, and required to reaction posts to classmates' questions to each other.
Yeah, excellent. And that's a great way, just as you would in the face-to-face classroom. That's a great way to get discussions going. You would toss out a couple of questions or comments to get the discussions flowing. And one of the things that I read, they recommended keeping the introduction discussion board open throughout the semester, which I have always done. It would not have occurred to me to close it, but one of the advantages there is that particularly if you're breaking them into groups for projects, then they can go back to that introduction discussion board and get to know the other people in their online group a little bit better. So it's a way of them keeping in touch with each other, another connection for them. Any other comments or takeaways or things to share with us? It's been an excellent interaction in this discussion on discussions. This is the reference list, and I will send that out to everyone. And then we also have to let you know, again, the coming attractions next week is one on teamwork and collaboration. And that is hosted by someone here in the Center for eLearning, but the person who really is sharing is a faculty member who has been working with groups, collaborative groups, and putting people together from different disciplines to have some interaction and discussion. So we're looking forward to that one. October 30th, we are putting together a panel of experienced faculty to share their thoughts and ideas on peer review. And then November 6th, we're going to be talking about adding some pizzazz again to our presentation skills. So I thank each one of you for joining with us today, and know that we appreciate your input tremendously, because that really is what makes this work for all of us. So thank you so much for being here. And any questions or comments? You know what? I didn't put my email in there. We'll put that in the note that goes out, so that if you have any questions or anything that you want to add to continue. Thank you. And thanks for your comments as well. Enjoy the rest of your week.